Amusement Park. And this series is called In Response Interviews with Intriguing Internalizers. I am so excited to speak to the news report from their hearts, souls, and deep minds in response to the very intense outside world. It is July 5th, 2020. We are still in the middle of the global COVID-19 health pandemic. And especially here in America, we are in that. And our guest today, here streaming on Facebook, YouTube, and podcast, if you're listening soon, is Patrick Pantano. Yay! Welcome,
Thanks
sir.
for having me. Thank you. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm actually camping in my friend's backyard, so I'm a little tired, but it's fun. I'm good.
It's early there, isn't it?
It is. We are 15 hours in Chicago ahead of Melbourne, so we're in the same day, but it is 7:30 a.m. So Patrick,
you're behind, actually, I think.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Morning, evening.
Yeah.
So Patrick is another one of the. We met under the music scene context, and he was drumming in a few bands, and would come to Chicago to play bands, and that's how we met, and just stayed friends. And most notably, Patrick was drumming in the Dirtbombs, yay! Which is so good, especially live. And Patrick is also a very accomplished photographer, and you can see him in his art studio. He's drawing now. So a lot of different cultural. Oh no, you can draw. That's fine. Do your thing. Just saying.
Okay.
Because this is also going to be a podcast, so people know what's going on.
Okay.
So, and to side note to the viewers, live viewers, Patrick and I are having a little technical difficulty. There are some delays, so it is what it is.
We're on the other side of the world. I'm surprised we can even talk.
I know, and see.
Right.
Each other. So, is there anything else that you would like people to know about you?
No, not that I can think of. I mean, I suppose the important stuff will come up. I'm a dad. I've got 2 little babies. And I'm making paintings now. That's about it. That's what I do with my time.
Oh, that sounds like a lovely way to spend your time. So you're talking a little bit of your outside world. Can you tell us more about what to you the outside is like, and then what to you your inside is like responding to that?
Well, when you asked and you had the title for this, it's something like intriguing internalizers. Like, for some reason, my mind went to a place where sort of a negative connotation of internalizer, like somebody that, swallows a lot of anger and ends up with ulcers and stuff like that because they're internalizing all these strong emotions, which is, maybe not that far off the truth. But honestly, the first thing that comes to mind is I'm having a little bit of what would be like survivor's guilt, not being in America, especially revolving around the resistance to police brutality and the racial concerns. And I just feel like I should be home fighting. But things are, the pandemic is bad here, and they're starting to lock things down again.
Oh, are they?
Yeah, it's not as bad as it was. I moved here from New York, and my friends there, it's really bad there. And but they really did it. They kind of took care of it here as well as could be expected. So it's not as insane. But the latest thing they just did is they started identifying sort of hotspots by zip code and postcode, and they're locking people down, and like one of the areas has these housing projects in them, and they sent out like 500 police to essentially imprison everyone in the housing project, which is really a recipe for disaster, and everybody's pretty upset about that. So there's a couple of housing projects that are like locked down by armed guard. So as much as it's sort of better here, it's also pretty bad. But I've been internalizing everything at home mostly, and trying to, I went to a protest here, and when I was preparing for it in my mind, I was thinking like I was going to this big protest, and thinking that it was going to be this big violent thing. And when I got there, it was so totally different. I mean, there was barely any police. They were just kind of, they weren't in riot gear or lined up in rows. It was just like a few of them pocketed here and there. And there was, you know, the whole city came out. It was a huge turnout, and it was all pretty uncontested.
We froze.
So it was a much better scene in that sense. But yeah, so survivor's guilt, I guess, would be the thing I'm feeling mostly.
That is so, you just said a lot of really fascinating things. Survival's guilt is something interesting. And I want to thank you for even acknowledging that, because that means you are, it seems like you are a person who cares. And if you were here in the States, you would be a person with, like, on the ground doing that. So thank you. And thank you for protesting there. I have to ask about that housing project. Is most of the population there Black? Or they definitely sound economically disenfranchised if it's a project similar to what I'm thinking about in the States.
It is economically disenfranchised people. There isn't a large African community here like there is in America, but there's a large Asian community. So there are some Africans, and then there are Indians, and then there's the indigenous Australians. So there's a large number of people, you know,
Good.
that would be targeted by cops.
Got that. Yeah, when I was in Australia, and I thought that maybe the term Black applied to the Aboriginal population there, but different
It
reports
kind of
from different
does,
cities, I
yeah.
guess, in Australia. Okay. Wow, that's pretty intense. I think that people trying to govern other people with a life-threatening virus around them leads them to making bad choices.
Yeah. I mean, it's like a lot of things. Like, if you decided that that was what needed to happen, that everybody in this housing project needed to stay there, I just feel like the last people you would want to send there to do that would be the police. It just is a
I
recipe for disaster.
absolutely. Well, you already started commenting a little bit, but may I ask if you're having further thoughtful or spiritual responses to what you're seeing in the world?
Um, I don't know about spiritual. It's tough. Like, just kind of feel like there's really no easy, because I've always sort of felt like if anything was going to change in America, there needed to be like a proper revolution, like a proper bloodshed style, you know. And it was always really frustrating because you hang around with a lot of, you know, well-meaning people, and they're all really angry at how the Black community is treated and how the world is going. And I'm like, okay, well, let's take up arms and do this. And then everyone's like, oh, well, wait a minute, you know, nobody wants to lose their stuff, their coffee shops and whatnot. And I'm just like, nothing's going to happen until there's, but then, you know, then I start thinking like, oh, okay, well, am I a soldier? Like, do I actually want to go out there and And there's that quote, like, battle ye not monsters lest ye become a monster, something like that. And and so you're just in this position where, like, if there's a spiritual end to it, like, you're being pulled into this place where you have to be just as shit as the people you're fighting. So I don't know what the answer is, really, except for there needs to be a lot of resistance. And it's been terrible for so long there. And so, I mean, I honestly think it's when all the protesting was happening more, like, and people were complaining like it was big news, I was just like, it seems like it's actually pretty light. It's considering what it should be, you know. Like, when people go to war, they blow up buildings and things. They don't just march in streets. Like, so I think America's getting off pretty easy.
I hear you. Again, thanks for being honest. That's one thing I've always liked about you. It's like, just say it as it is. So I'd like to respond to that. I hear you. You know, I talk a lot about pressure. And I think it's like, actually, it's like, it's really down to Newton's laws of physics. Like, for every action is the equal and opposite reaction. Like, you can't put this much pressure on, like, systemically, like, being racist against blacks in particular, or other people that are not you, and expect nothing to happen. Like, there has to be a force that comes back that matches the force that you're putting out against them, if you're that kind of person in power. That being said, I agree with you. I don't think that we as protesters have matched the level of oppression that
Yeah.
matters cause. Like, I agree with you. That being said, I have friends in Minneapolis who told me that there are, I think they were saying there's like 2 miles of, it is bombed out. The library, the police station, like, literally bombed out, like, nothing on the
Yeah.
inside, like fires. And so, in many ways, that level that you're talking about is happening. But in a grand scheme of things, no. You know, here in inner city Chicago, it depends on what neighborhood you're in. It was never to the level of Minneapolis, though. So
Right.
I agree. I think the resistance that we're coming up with is a little inconsistent, but, you know, it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Say again?
It's a marathon, not a
Yeah.
sprint.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, but I appreciate you've got a good perspective because you are not in this country anymore, but you understand this country, so you can look in and see what we're doing. But that, of course, is filtered through the media, so you're only seeing whatever they're telling you. There's that.
That, and yeah, and my friends and people I talk to.
Mm.
But yeah, I don't. A lot of people say, "Aren't you glad you're not there anymore?" And I kind of feel like, no. You know, I mean, it's still, all that shit still exists, whether I'm there or not, and none of it really makes me happy. But, you know, I've got
Yeah,
these
we cut out for a second.
children to raise now, so there's a lot of, so that's a different filter. Like, you kind of want to keep them safe and figure out a way for you to feel positive about them sort of entering the world, which is tough.
For sure. Oh, yeah. I mean, especially because you have two little ones. How old are your kids?
3 and 5.
Oh, they're little ones. Yeah. Can you say more about that as a dad with your dad hat on? Like, I, I, what kind of responsibilities do you feel, or I guess, how do you intend to raise your children in a world like this now?
Um, I don't know. I used to think it was just a matter of, just as long as we're not, you know, terrible people, that they won't be terrible people. But I guess that's not necessarily true. Um, you know, it's one thing to say, like, they'll be taught empathy and kindness, and, you know, not to have any of the horrible isms, the racism, sexism, any of that. but you know, there's another step to that. Like there's a certain privilege that they'll have as white people, and to be able to recognize that and to walk away from that and sacrifice that is not really easy, and it also requires knowing when it's there. And I don't know how I'm going to teach them that. I mean, I haven't figured it out yet, and I'm still learning how to be a better person myself. I'm like every day, and then there's those guys. They're looking to me for, I don't know. I have no idea what I'm doing. So I don't know. I'll tell you in 30 years how I do.
Okay. Oh, okay. 30 years, we'll check in.
Okay.
Again, thank you for being so honest. I agree with you. I think that the best way to lead by example is to be the example, right? You have to figure out how to be your best self to set as an example, especially for your little ones and each other.
Yeah.
So you, like I mentioned before, you are multidisciplinary. You are a kind of visual artist, photographer in Australia, Melbourne, and yay! Oh my gosh! Just wait. Can you hold that up again? Let's see your drawing. That's good. The shapes, the shapes. It's awesome. Um,
There's the
Yay,
there's the
visual.
coronavirus right there.
Hello, Mr. and Mrs. Virus. Welcome to the universe. Don't know how welcome you were, but you're here. So, as an artist that can filter things and interpret them in different mediums, can you speak about how you're seeing things that way?
These paintings have gotten really chaotic. Like
Oh, yeah.
I'm not prepared to show them, like, or like a before and after, like what they looked like a year ago versus what they look like now. But like I had, during lockdown, I had a bunch of time in here, and like, excuse me,
Yeah, sure.
I don't know. Here's one. This sort of just, they're just like doing this now,
Huh.
and they're just sort of about relationships, like the colors relationship to each other and the shapes, and so it's like, I guess if I was forced to come up with an answer, I mean, they're abstracts and they're totally, instinctive responses, and based on improvisation. So I'm not really sure it does them any justice to kind of intellectualize what's going on there, but I guess there's something probably to be said for the chaos of like having lots more marks, lots more things to relate to other things. I guess on my mind is just everybody having to be separated from everyone else.
That I definitely pick up on a lot of and what you just sketched as well during this conversation, a lot of modular pieces, units. So yeah, that kind of isolation definitely shows through in your artwork, or that imposed isolation.
Yeah, but they're all kind of touching. I don't
Yes.
know. I don't know. I mean, again, I maybe I should keep my mouth shut. Like, I'm not really exactly sure that is what they are, but I've noticed the work getting more hectic, and that's probably a response to anxiety, just from everything.
I think that I'm glad you're not keeping your mouth shut. I think that what you're showing is fantastic as a release and a way to process, and that is the role of the artist, right? To take that outside world and to translate it internally in a way that makes sense to you and that can help others translate.
Yeah.
So there are back to playing in person but far away from each other. Um, but have you had a chance to express the anxiety and what's going on musically?
Yes and no. The project that I'm doing here is, it's like improvisational music, and So like a big part of that is, you know, sort of doing it in real time and playing off each other. And since we can't get together, it's been hard, but I've started doing a recording where like we're sending pieces of music back and forth. And so it'll be a weird experiment whether you can improvise from a recording, you know. So again, that's just something we're kind of doing right now, and it's going really slowly. So I'll let you know how that turns out once I get all the pieces. But
Yeah, do.
but I really like doing that, and it's been just the kind of music I've always been interested in, but I've never really been able to pursue. And so now that I'm old, I can just do things like that and not have to worry about where they sit or what I'm gonna do with them or anything. There's a lot of behaviors that are just in the act of doing them, and I don't really give as much thought to like where they're gonna go as I used to when I was younger, or who I'm gonna show them to, or what shows to play, or any of that. I kind of just making stuff because I like to make stuff.
Isn't that nice when you get to a point in life where the art is more for you than for approval? I love that part.
It's weird because like I think that like especially music and visual arts, they're like a way of communicating. And when you say you're kind of doing that without someone you're communicating to, it kind of feels like weird, like you're talking to yourself. But I mean, I wouldn't mind showing people. I just don't really give it. I'm just not really driven like I used to be to do things with the stuff. I'm making stuff.
Yeah, good for you. I think that we're all digging into what we know works for us. You know,
Yeah.
that's why I'm doing this interview series. Like, I like connecting with people and people I know that I think are interesting and have important things to listening. So, sir, is there anything else you'd like to share?
No, just that I hope everyone stays safe. I hope you stay safe. How long have we known each other? I was trying to place where we met and I couldn't remember.
We met when one of your bands played Chicago. So I
Come
hosted a
on.
TV. Yeah, the
Yeah, the
Come On.
Come
That's
Ons
right.
played Chicago, but I feel like I knew you before that. Maybe
No, I
not.
think well, I certainly heard of the Dirtbombs, but I think that that's when we met. And then we
Okay.
also had a connection because we knew Dan and Sally Ann in Pittsburgh.
Ah, that's it. That's
And
right.
Dan and I go way, 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 way back.
Yeah.
So and then the web weaves.
Yeah. The
And technology allows us to talk from across the planet.
I know, it's great. We were calling Dan and Sally Ann a bunch during the lockdown.
That's nice.
Because they've got 2 kids, and like my
Yes.
kids just wanted to talk to people on the computer just because of the novelty of it, of the screen and the buttons and everything. And they have 2 beautiful daughters, and so we all hung out on the computer a bunch of times. They're great. Yeah, they're great people.
We froze a little bit there, but I get the gist of what you're saying. Awesome.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much for joining, Patrick, and giving us a little tiny view of your very big world. And hope that your kids and your family are doing okay. And keep on with the art, my friend.
Thank you. Thanks
Yeah.
for having me. So
Oh, thanks.
that's another thing I drew here.
So Patrick just drew another beautiful abstract blue and orange squares.
See, does that tell you anything about the interview? Like you were saying I should draw while I was talking to. Does that express anything?
Yeah, well, you wanted to draw when we were talking, so I encouraged that.
It was what I was doing while I was waiting for you.
Yeah, you
Thanks
know
so
what we'll
much.
do?
It's great to see you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So when we turn this into a podcast, take pictures of those and send them to me so I can post them so people can see they're listening.
Okay.
If you want. Cool.
All right.
All right, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. Until next time.